This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A city councillor says it's time for Winnipeg to rethink its approach to homelessness. It comes after emergency crews doused a fire at an encampment near Assiniboine Avenue last night. That blaze just the latest in a number of similar fires in recent weeks. CBC's Cameron McLean reports.
A fire broke out at this encampment along the bank of the Assiniboine River around 6 o'clock last night. The flames quickly spreading, coming close to a neighboring tent. Firefighters arrived soon after to extinguish the blaze. No injuries were reported. One camp resident we spoke to says he heard a loud bang before the fire started, but doesn't know what caused the fire. Camp residents tried to douse the flames with water they had from jugs in the camp, but were unable to contain the flames until firefighters arrived. Darby Hatfield was out for a walk when the fire was burning. She says her thoughts are with the people living in the camp.
It's unfortunate, and I wish there was more that we could do, and I wish there was more resources that they could reach out for.
The city says tracking the number of encampment fires is difficult. The number of non-structural fires has fluctuated over the years, reaching a new high last year of more than 2,300. Back at the camp on Assiniboine, the smell of burning lingers in the air. A camp resident says fire prevention officers have visited in the past and advised them to space out their tents, which they say is part of the reason the fire didn't spread. Lisa Gilmore, Assistant Chief of Community Risk Reduction, says there's no plan to order the residents to leave.
Vacate orders are very disruptive and can be very traumatic for the individuals living in the encampments. So we do try to use those as a last resort.
Daniel McIntyre councillor Cindy Gilroy says the city needs to do more to get people out of camps and into shelters.
We have to step up our game. We have to look at our internal encampment strategy. As a council, we need to really look at encampments in general and where we're allowing them.
A spokesperson for the mayor says the city hopes to receive a chunk of $250 million the federal government announced last month to help cities with encampments. A spokesperson for Provincial Housing Minister Bernadette Smith says the province and feds are still in discussion. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Do you feel safe coming downtown? Many in Winnipeg say the answer is no. Recent unprovoked machete attacks as well as violent random carjackings have made many in the city's downtown feel uneasy. Police and Crime Stoppers say they're doing what they can to improve safety. CBC's Zubina Ahmed reports.
Winnipeggers are not feeling safe downtown.
There's so much violence, and I think a lot of it's random. Not that if it isn't random would make sense, but there's way too much violence.
Fighting on the bus, a lot of smoking on the bus, like weed and stuff like that. It's got to stop. And people are arguing with other people on the bus. It's not safe.
There has been a spate of crimes in downtown last week, from a machete attack on Ellis Avenue to a carjacking incident in a parking lot at York and Carlton. And now Winnipeg police are looking for 3 suspects after a woman was carjacked on William Avenue when she was leaving church on Sunday evening. Constable Steve Spencer urges the public to be aware of the surroundings, to be safe and help others.
A good example of that would be if you have a cell phone or headphones. You're not really going to see somebody approaching you if you have headphones on and you're looking down at your phone. Just be aware. If you see somebody suspicious, don't be afraid to call 911.
Winnipeg police announced an increase of foot patrols around downtown with the start of the hockey season. Constable Spencer says they're trying to balance their response plans for other upcoming events as well.
There's a constant presence downtown. There's having to balance that between the calls for service that come in, but we also have, during events, other officers that come separately that work these events to ensure that everybody's safe.
Meanwhile, Winnipeg Crime Stoppers is focusing on the city's transit system with its latest campaign. Board Chair Robert McKenzie says they have advertised on 50 bus benches, letting transit riders know they can report tips on crimes seen on the bus.
So what we're asking is very simple. If you see something, say something.
He says last year they received over 4,000 tips and hopes to crack down further on violence and crime. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Wait times for CT scans at a pair of Winnipeg hospitals have quadrupled. But despite this, the health minister insists the province is making progress. For more, we're joined by the CBC's Ian Fraze in the newsroom. So, Ian, how long are these waits?
Brittany, the median wait used to be around 6 or 7 weeks at HSC and Concordia, but now it's around 25 weeks or longer. These numbers reflect increases year over year from August of 2023 to this August. I should note other hospitals have only seen modest changes in wait times going up or down. Tory health critic Kathleen Cook raised her concerns about the waits Monday in question period.
That is the highest wait times have been in years.
Better if you didn't do anything.
And is by far the longest wait for a CT at HSC since the pandemic. This surge is clearly a direct result of NDP mismanagement. When will the Minister of Health take responsibility for the dangerous delays that have plagued diagnostic services under their watch?
Yeah.
The explanation provided today by Health Minister Izoma Asseguera says that more people are getting CT scans now, and that has the effect of letting more people get on to the wait list.
It's important to note that as we do more, as we build capacity and as we get more folks, through diagnostics, we're also creating more space for folks to get onto those lists and for folks to be eligible for these tests and procedures.
Cook, however, thought that explanation was puzzling. The year-over-year increase in CT scans province-wide was 3%. Cook says that's modest and doesn't explain why some waits at some hospitals have quadrupled. Brittany.
All right, thanks, Ian. That's CBC's Ian Fraze. Winnipeg police confirm they're investigating after large Stars of David were drawn on the sidewalk outside the food fair on Portage near Arlington. Co-owner Ramsey Zeed says it happened somewhere between morning and noon on Sunday. He says more than a dozen stars were drawn in front of the store. Zeed, who is also the president of the Canadian Palestinian Association of Manitoba, considers the incident a targeted threat.
It's disgusting. I mean, I don't know why somebody would do that. I don't know why people would draw Stars of David in front of our stores. I mean, I know why. I mean, they're trying to intimidate and silence us.
Zeed says store security video shows a man and woman using chalk to draw the stars. Winnipeg police say the hate crimes coordinator has been notified. An executive with Winnipeg's Shindico Realty testified in court that a bribery allegation about his company is false. Shindico Vice President Robert Schindelman told the Court of King's Bench an allegation made by a former company broker, John Pearson, is false. He testified last week he's seen documents Shindico paid $85,000 to a former Winnipeg CAO. That allegation has not been proven in court. The former CAO has not responded to request for comment. Pearson is suing Schindelman and his brother for $5 million over the breakdown of their business relationship in 2022. An overnight drop-in center for people experiencing homelessness in Brandon has already opened its doors just in time for dropping temperatures. This year, the Brandon Friendship Center will be operating the temporary drop-in. Doors opened last night. There's been a growing need for extra shelter space in the city. In October 2022, Safe and Warm, the city's only overnight shelter, was already over capacity. It also doesn't operate 24 hours a day. Executive Director Barbara McNish says the number of people experiencing homelessness keeps growing. She says they need more options to keep people safe at night.
It gives people some choice. Maybe they just want to, like I said, drop in for a few hours, or maybe they're not in a place where they can abide by the guidelines at Samaritan House, so maybe they do need another option. So we are pleased that there's another option besides just out on the street.
The overnight drop-in shelter will be open until March 31st from 7 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. It's located at Life Journey on Princess Avenue. Time now to bring in Riley Lachuk for a look at our weather. And Riley, it sure is colder out.
Sure is colder. I mean, our overnight temperature is still above seasonal for this time of the year, and even our daytime highs above seasonal for this time of the year as well, getting up to 9 as forecast in Winnipeg today, 10 through extreme southern Manitoba, even an 11 today in Melita. A few showers through northwestern Ontario, this riding along a trough in the jet stream, which has allowed some of that cooler air into parts of southern Manitoba. certainly feeling the chill. Down to 0 overnight tonight with a clearing sky through the overnight hours. We have started to see some of that clearing already. Back to a partly cloudy sky by the time we hit the morning hours tomorrow. Northwest winds 15 gusting to 30. And then we're looking at a mostly sunny 6 through the afternoon tomorrow. We'll talk about your Halloween forecast coming up.
All right. Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
We probably respond to at least 3 or 4 overdose calls a shift.
We're experiencing burnout by some of our staff with the amount of volumes of calls. We're seeing an uptick in violence.
Firefighters and paramedics are responding to tens of thousands more medical calls today than 5 years ago. Now the service is changing the way they respond to some calls. We'll hear how that could affect you coming up after the break. Whether it's a fire, an overdose, or a car crash, the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service says they've seen an increase in calls for help in recent years, and the data backs that up. Recently, CBC reporter Alana Cole spent time with WFPS crews to get a better understanding of what goes into the work of first responders and explains some changes being made to meet the demand.
one night with some of Winnipeg's first responders. Up close, seeing what they see. We stop here, a call about a possible overdose near a city shelter. The patient's been given naloxone. Now he's going to hospital. Firefighter paramedic Adam Krawitz is part of the response.
We probably respond to at least 3 or 4 overdose calls a shift, and that's just my shift in particular. The drug problem in this city is getting worse. That's my opinion.
A car crashed into a house. Firefighter paramedic Alex Oliver says the man in the car was alert and talking.
You always have to err on the side of caution, even though they might not feel anything. That it's best to put a collar on them, tell them to stay perfectly still until we wait for the ambulance to get there.
The Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service received 195 calls for help between 5:30 at night and 2 in the morning when CBC spent time with them. That includes medical transfers. Scott Wilkinson, the Deputy Chief of Fire Rescue Operations and Training, says the number of calls to first responders has increased in recent years, and it can take a toll.
Volume itself is a challenge. I mean, we're experiencing burnout by some of our staff with the amount of volumes of calls. The types of calls are an issue. We're seeing an uptick in violence.
The amount of calls is one reason the service is changing how they dispatch calls with a new 5-priority system. Ryan Sneath is Deputy Chief of Paramedic Operations and Training.
So right now our call categories are priority 1, lights and sirens, or priority 2, no lights and sirens.
This is a district chief.
Officials want to ensure crews can get to critical emergencies. Priority 1 calls in under 9 minutes. Sneath says those time-dependent calls won't change. The rest will fit into the other 4 categories. They won't use lights and sirens to get there. A portion will go to a community paramedic who helps over the phone. In some cases, that's already happening.
Early estimates before we roll this out is about 15,000 incidents a year will go to those community paramedics.
Adapting to the city's needs. Jennifer Lundeen is a district chief of paramedic operations.
There's a lot more drug overdoses now that we respond to. Like in the first 10 years of my career here, I think I saw Narcan being administered maybe 10 times ever in those 10 years. And now it's nothing to do 10 Narcan administrations in a tour or in a set of 4 days.
In many ways, this is where the response starts. We're in the WFPS 911 Communications Center. The people working here are the ones that take the calls, get the information, determine the priority, and dispatch the crews.
How many doses of Narcan have you given her? Listen carefully, I'll tell you how to do chest compressions. Make sure
over the last 9 years of working in the communications center, Michael Grosvenor has seen changes.
Talking about the opioid epidemic in the city that we have and the difficulties and challenges with those. Seems to be more violent calls have increased drastically. The nature of the calls in the unknown, the uncertainty of people and our vulnerable population has greatly increased. 6 Charlie 1 Alpha.
Data from information coming in here and from the crews on the scenes helped shape the new system. Fire and Paramedic Chief Christian Schmidt says another reason for the change is cutting down the number of times crews are cutting through traffic with lights and sirens.
Really the move toward this is twofold. One, to become more efficient, but also to allow us to deploy our vehicles in a safer manner.
Schmidt says another shift is their work with the Downtown Community Safety Partnership, when outreach workers are better suited to help. Winnipeg's mayor is considering what it would take to get an emergency service for mental health calls. Schmidt likes the idea.
It's going to ensure that we get the right resource to the patient's side. And, in some cases, that is going to be a mental health clinician.
You're older than that?
The new 5-priority system is expected to roll out in the new year. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitobans can expect some changes to their gas bills soon. The Public Utilities Board has approved a request by Centra Gas to increase rates for the first time since 2018. A rate hike of 4.5% will go into effect on Friday. The interim approval is for a one-year period. They say the increase is needed to cover system costs and maintenance. Other changes include a decrease in the gas commodity rate and changes to upstream gas costs. The board says all factors considered, the average residential bill will actually go down by around $12 a year. Riley's back now. And Riley, I've started pulling all of my sweaters out, all of my fall clothes. It's sweater weather, cozy fire weather already.
Have you turned the heat on yet?
The heat's been on.
Mine's not yet.
It goes on just in the evenings, and then it kicks off.
Yeah, you might be turning the heat on for a couple of nights in the long-range forecast. We're looking at temperatures dipping below zero. It was going to happen.
It was going to happen.
Looking at, we're going to start with the upper level winds actually, and I know this looks a little bit busy, but just bear with me while I explain this to you. So I was talking last time about that dip in the jet stream, that trough in the jet stream, and what that is doing is really sinking down into the States, and that's allowing some of that cooler air from the north to really funnel south into the prairie provinces. Along that, a little bit of instability riding along that trough line here in the jet stream, and you can see some of that snow to the south, and then some rain, which will push into northwestern Ontario as we get into the overnight hours tonight. I'm not talking about a soaking rain, but certainly looking at a little bit of wet weather through parts of northwestern Ontario through the overnight hours into the early morning. Back to the west, some clearing skies through the overnight hours tonight, and that's what we can expect through the night tonight is some of that clearing west to east throughout the overnight hours. That rain pushes out of northwestern Ontario through the morning, leaving us with a mainly cloudy afternoon. But again, we'll see some clearing as we head through the rest of the day. Wednesday into Thursday, Halloween, at this point looking like it's going to be about a mix of sun and clouds, not mainly sunny, but also not particularly cloudy either. You can see the start of the day, at least, a little bit of cloud cover through the rest of the day. Yeah, we're kind of in that mix of sun and clouds, so not particularly interesting, but also not particularly cold either. You might want to bundle up a little bit if you're heading out for some trick-or-treating, particularly around the supper hour. Looking at temperatures as that clearing happens, dropping to something closer to the freezing mark through the early evening hours. As we head into the rest of Thursday night into Friday, we're looking at mainly sunny skies, and really we're setting up for a much drier pattern as we head through the rest of the work weekend, even into the weekend. Our next chance of some rain, at least in Manitoba, not coming till we get into the early part of next week, which I'll have in your long-range forecast. Rainfall to come. I was talking about that rain in northwestern Ontario. Fort Frances, Rainy River, maybe 5 to 10 millimeters, a couple of millimeters in the Kenora region, and even places like Sprague, Piney could pick up a couple of millimeters to the overnight hours tonight, but that does clear as we get into the morning hours. Wake-up temperatures about -3, -4, and then in the long range, 6-degree highs for the rest of the work week, Brittany, and time change on the weekend.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. Thanks,
Yes,
Riley.
You're welcome.
We have much more to come after this short break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Stay with us. Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet says he'll start talking to the Conservatives and NDP about bringing down the minority Liberal government. This comes after the Liberals failed to meet his demands, adopting 2 private members' bills related to seniors' benefits and supply management. Rafi Boudjikanian has more.
5 weeks after the Bloc Québécois set today as a deadline for the governing Liberals, they insist they mean it.
Have they come to us yesterday or the day before? No, we haven't got what we wanted.
In a letter to the other opposition parties, the Bloc wrote, "We clearly, publicly and repeatedly said this was a final deadline with no possible appeal. From now on, we will vote against the government during confidence motions as long as they are in the interests of Quebec."
If there's a vote tomorrow, they might fall tomorrow.
The Bloc had 2 requests, that Liberals push forward 2 pieces of legislation, one focused on raising pensions for seniors under the age of 74 and the other exempting supply management from international trade negotiations. But while the Bloc says it started chatting with the other parties, the NDP so far is showing no interest.
To be perfectly honest, it shows to me that the Bloc was unable to get the things that they needed for Canadians and for Quebecers. I'm pretty proud of our team. We've been successful at getting some of those really key pieces of legislation through. We'll continue to try to do that.
The Prime Minister also had thoughts to share.
Over the past number of weeks, I've had some very good conversations with Mr. Blanchet. We agree as a party that we need to work on supporting vulnerable people and doing more for our seniors. It's one of the reasons why we've been so enthusiastic about delivering dental care to so many seniors across the country. And we're going to continue to look for ways to help Canadians through these difficult times and work constructively with everyone in the House.
The Bloc's decision is only one of Trudeau's problems this week. He's also still dealing with some of his own MPs who want to force a vote in caucus for him to resign. And the Conservatives say now that they've got the Bloc on side to topple the Liberals, they will present another confidence motion as soon as possible, should the NDP indicate it will play ball too. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Canada's special interlocutor on unmarked graves issued her final report today. It calls on Ottawa to establish an Indigenous-led commission to investigate missing and disappeared Indigenous children. Kimberly Murray says the commission should have a 20-year mandate. Sitting behind an empty chair meant to honor children who never returned from residential schools, she revealed the 3 key findings she's made in the past 2 years.
First, that many of the missing children have in fact been disappeared by the state. Second, that there is an urgent need to establish a commission of investigations into the enforced disappearance of Indigenous children in Canada. And third, there is settler amnesty in Canada and a culture of impunity.
More than 150,000 Indigenous children were forced to attend residential schools. At least 6,000 of them died in those institutions. Well, the final countdown south of the border has begun. 1 week from today, Americans will be casting ballots in an election that couldn't be more consequential, in a race that couldn't be much closer. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and his Democratic rival Kamala Harris are still running neck and neck in the opinion polls. But tonight, the latter is presenting the closing arguments of her campaign during a rally at a very particular location in Washington. Our Katie Simpson is there.
Tens of thousands of people are expected just outside the White House for Kamala Harris's closing argument. Let me show you what this lineup looks like. People gathering here starting as early as 7 o'clock this morning. The lineup going for at least a block and around the corner. People really excited for what is being billed as one of the most significant speeches that Kamala Harris will deliver in this election campaign. She's expected to make her argument to Americans, talking about her vision for the future, the kinds of changes that she wants to enact to make life more affordable, to make housing more accessible, those kinds of traditional campaign arguments. And then she's expected to launch an attack against Donald Trump, particularly in the wake of that racist and sexist rally that took place at Madison Square Garden on Sunday. We've been chatting with people here, very excited to see Kamala Harris, and they sort of describe a mix of excitement and nervous energy heading into the final week of the campaign.
I'm feeling a little bit much better. I've been doing a lot of studying and looking, and I believe and I know in my heart that she's going to win. I know she's going to win. I know. There's a good feeling.
Given how close this race is, how does that make you feel?
I'm just surprised that it is this close. How can it be this close? You know, so I'm not too relying on the polls as much because I don't really think that they are really that accurate on determining where we stand in this race.
Donald Trump's campaign remains on the defensive after that Sunday rally at Madison Square Garden that has triggered so much backlash. Donald Trump now saying he didn't see the comedy set that was considered so widely offensive, with multiple racist jokes targeting Latino and Puerto Rican voters. He said he didn't hear it or see it and denied that there was any sort of questionable content at that rally.
It was like a love fest. An absolute love fest. And I tell you what, right now, nobody's ever had love like that. That was love in the room, and it was love for our country.
Tens of millions of American voters have already participated in the early voting process. And right now, the campaigns are zeroing in on anyone who might be undecided, the sliver of voters who fall into that camp, as really both Democrats and Republicans sprint ahead to the finish. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
More signs today the war in Ukraine could be entering a dangerous new phase. Russia staged a huge military training exercise simulating a massive nuclear strike, even including the launch of unarmed ballistic missiles. A drill that comes as thousands of North Korean troops in Russia appear to be heading towards the front line. Crystal Gamansing has more on the international concern and condemnation.
North Korea's foreign minister is in Russia, one day after NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte expressed concern about North Korean troops being on the ground in Russia.
The deployment of North Korean troops represents one, a significant escalation in the DPRK's ongoing involvement in Russia's illegal war. Two, yet another breach of UN Security Council resolutions. And three, a dangerous expansion of Russia's war.
Very few details about Cho Sun-hui's trip have been made public, but her delegation at this point is not scheduled to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin, that according to the Kremlin spokesperson. Her visit, however, is raising questions. NATO, the U.S., and now South Korea have all shared intelligence detailing the presence of North Korean troops in Russia and the possibility that they could be deployed to the front line in Russia's war against Ukraine.
It undermines peace on the Korean peninsula and fuels the Russian war against Ukraine.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke with South Korea's president by phone on Tuesday, with the possibility of a new phase in the war and the potential for new troops to be on the front line. South Korea may soon directly start supplying Ukraine with weapons. Now, last June, North Korea and Russia signed a mutual security pact, and it's that treaty that resulted in North Korea's foreign minister visiting Russia. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
There are more calls for change in the wake of a CBC News investigation into Rogers' price increases. A week after our Go Public team first highlighted customer concerns, the NDP is calling on the Liberal government to put the telecom giant on notice, reverse the hikes, or face consequences. Erica Johnson has more.
Rogers must be put on notice.
It's the latest volley in a growing movement against a recent Rogers price hike. The NDP calling on the Liberals to make Rogers roll back an increase or be banned from federal contracts.
Will the Liberals have the courage to do it? Yes or no?
He's talking about customers who thought they had a guaranteed price for TV services, like 81-year-old Roger Burrows, who claims Rogers recently misled him into signing a 2-year deal for TV, phone, and internet, urging him to lock in a great rate with a price guarantee. But after he signed, his bill went up.
They're devious. They tell you one thing and do another.
Go Public has been contacted by Rogers customers across the country who say they too were promised a guaranteed deal.
This is not
what I was expecting.
It's not right. They are gouging people.
I felt lied to and cheated.
A contract clause allows price increases for rental equipment, like TV boxes. This contract law expert says telco agreements need an overhaul.
These contracts are very long, difficult to understand, and they're generally unfair to consumers.
The NDP claims the Liberals have awarded Rogers $165 million in contracts in the past 2 years.
And if they're not going to be good operators, then stop getting a chance to actually bid and get more money from Canadian taxpayers.
In a statement to go public, a spokesperson for the industry minister dismissed the NDP's call to ban Rogers from future contracts, saying it could significantly impact services for Canadians.
I would like to move a motion.
Meantime, members of a parliamentary committee have unanimously agreed to invite Rogers' CEO to Parliament Hill. A spokesperson for Rogers told Go Public the company always works collaboratively with Parliament and reiterated the majority of Rogers' customers aren't affected by this latest price hike, though he wouldn't say how many are. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
And still ahead, why a major airline is testing tech that shames you for boarding too early. That story when we return. Stay with us. American Airlines is testing new technology that outs passengers who try to board before they're supposed to. But as Sophia Harris reports, not everyone thinks public shaming is the best way to solve the problem.
You've probably been there.
We invite customers in Zone 1 to board now.
Your flight starts boarding, and some passengers cut in line before their zone is called.
Like, there isn't enough carry-on baggage storage, so people do want to get on as early as possible to ensure that their bag isn't gate checked.
Have you ever tried to board before your zone is called to secure carry-on space?
For sure, yeah. A lot of the time it's really tight, and they definitely don't account for everyone to have like a carry-on.
To combat the queue jumping problem, American Airlines is testing new technology at the gate at several U.S. airports. This is how it works. When a passenger who cut the line tries to get their boarding pass scanned, the technology beeps, and the passenger is told to wait their turn.
I think it's fair, to be honest, but I mean, I wouldn't like to be called out. But I guess like there's zones for a reason, right?
But traveler Robert Stinson isn't on board.
I don't think public shaming is the way to go about it. It makes the people angry, and do we need more angry people at the airport? I don't really think so.
This industry expert says instead of nabbing line cutters, airlines should enforce their rules for carry-on baggage limits.
The airlines themselves are causing the problem. People are walking on with 2, 3, 4 pieces of hand baggage, and that just chews up all the space on the airplane.
Perhaps a crackdown is in the works. Air Canada passenger Stinson says he was surprised to learn he can't carry on this bag. So your carry-on is oversized?
Yeah, apparently. I was forced to check it today.
Air Canada didn't respond to requests for comment about lack of carry-on space. American Airlines says gate agents will politely ask outed queue jumpers to follow the rules, and that its technology was designed to improve the boarding experience. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
Veterans Affairs Canada says it's launching an investigation in the wake of a CBC News analysis that found some veterans may be paying too much for long-term care. Kate McKenna has the details from Ottawa.
Retired Colonel Michel Drapeau thinks Ottawa made a big mistake that's costing many Canadian veterans.
It's a kind of a slap in the face that these veterans who've given all they had not to be looked after properly and not to be looked after the way Parliament wanted them to be.
He's part of a team that's filed a proposed class action lawsuit claiming veterans have been paying too much for long-term care. Many veterans in care homes are only supposed to pay a cost of room and board that's equivalent to the least expensive province or territory. But when CBC News crunched the numbers, we found the Northwest Territories, where the price has been cheapest for decades, was left out of that calculation, meaning veterans could be paying more than $3,100 more per year than they should be.
We're not talking about millionaires here. We're talking at the, if not at the poverty level, something higher, but not very, very much.
Well, it doesn't make me feel very happy.
Judy Riopel's father, Carl Gunther Williscroft, served and spent his last 8 years in long-term care. She thinks he may have been shortchanged.
I actually think it's terrible that they would do that to somebody who served, to anybody, to any of us.
In a statement, the Minister of Veterans Affairs says, "I have tasked the department to investigate it further. As there is pending litigation, it would be inappropriate to comment."
We want to know who knew when and why didn't they fix it. So I think that's important. The second thing is they need to make it right.
Advocates say veterans deserve better.
Veterans Affairs Canada has one job, which is to support these veterans and their families, and they fail miserably time and again.
Michel Drapeau estimates that tens of thousands of veterans could have been affected, and advocates say that if a mistake was made, those veterans or their estates deserve compensation. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Riley's back in now. And Riley, we talked about this last week when you were talking about the sunsets.
Yes.
I just took a look outside. It's dark. It's dark when I get up in the morning. It's dark when I get home at night. It's that season.
Yeah, and with the time change coming, of course, we're going to be getting into those 4:45 sunsets soon enough.
Yeah.
So your evening dog walk might be a little
a little tear.
A little dark. Here's your dog walking forecast for Wednesday. Sunrise tomorrow morning. I'll get into that in a moment, but first we have to take a look at Bella. Thank you, Chris, for sending this gorgeous picture in. Bella's waiting for a walk, I think. You can keep sending your pictures to talkback@cbc.ca. So sunrise tomorrow morning, 8:14. Once the time changes, we'll see those sunsets back in the 7 o'clock hour. 3 degrees to start the day tomorrow. We'll see clearing skies through the overnight hours, so partly cloudy by morning. 6 by the afternoon, west winds at 15. And then we're looking at a sunset tomorrow evening at 6:09, so dusk by the 6 o'clock hour. And of course, that bumps up an hour with that time change. Here's some of that cloud cover has started to clear out as we get into the evening hours, and that will continue to happen through the overnight hours, which means temperatures considerably cooler through the southwest part of the province. So Verdun, Brandon looking at about -5 overnight tonight, Swan River at -6. On the flip side, above zero, the further east you go into northwestern Ontario, which is looking at some of those showers through the overnight hours tonight. Into northern Manitoba, -5 in the Pas, -3 in Flin Flon, and some very gusty west winds on the Hudson Bay coast, looking at winds gusting 40 to 60 overnight, 50 to 70 through places like Churchill into Shamattawa tomorrow out of the west. Looking at temperatures warming up quite nicely, pretty seasonal for this time of the year. Mix of sun and clouds as we get through the afternoon hours tomorrow for much of northern Manitoba. Temperatures really hovering around the freezing mark, 4 in Grand Rapids and Barons River, 2 in Island Lake. We start mostly clear to mainly sunny as we get into the morning through the west. That clearing happens by lunchtime in the Red River Valley. And then we see temperatures warming up pretty close to seasonal once again, which would be 5 for this time of the year. So a lot of 6s on the board for tomorrow. And by the time we get to the afternoon, also clearing out as we get into northwestern Ontario. All right, there's something else happening that I thought I would let you know about. The trick-or-treating forecast, of course. Thursday evening, yes, we're looking at a high close to 6 degrees through the daytime on Thursday, but as we pull out the Halloween costumes and the trick-or-treating buckets, we're looking at something closer to the freezing mark, cloudy and spooky by the time we get to about the supper hour into the early evening here in Winnipeg, at least for Halloween. And speaking of...
Yes, it is time to pull out those costumes. Something ghoulish has been brewing around an undisclosed location in Norwood. 2 skeletons named Skelly and Boney M have taken over 2 neighbors' lawns.
Well, the skeletal...
Halloween is around the corner, and I'm at an undisclosed location in Winnipeg with...
Katie. And Jennifer.
And you have something interesting, well, set up in whose front lawn?
We have some strange guests that have been appearing all October, and they kind of like rotate between each of our lawns.
Yeah, one day they'll be in Katie's lawn, and then the next day they appear on our front lawn. So we have no idea. It just seems to be a spontaneous thing that happened at the beginning of October.
Always up to something.
Yeah, and it's been almost a month. Katie actually started this a couple years ago.
We were setting everything up in the yard, and we were talking about what we were going to do in our yard, and we mentioned Skelly, and then she was like, you know, we're going to get a skeleton, and then all of a sudden it was like, let's do skeletons together.
About 10 minutes later, it all happened. They've appeared in a variety of scenes. They've had a massage. They've had a tub together. They went fishing.
Oh, that's right. They went fishing. It was a long weekend, a lot of fishing.
They've had a tea party. Today they're playing Battleship. And who knows what tomorrow and the next few days will bring. But every day is an adventure, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been easy and doesn't take much time out of our days at all. Every day we'll text each other or meet on the street and say, what should we do tomorrow?
It looks like rain. I think they should go fishing.
Exactly.
Or like
very
it's going to be
weather
sunny.
conscious.
Maybe they can lounge on the lounger.
The other day when it was sunny, they had the aloha scene, of course, with the lei and the grass skirt and things like that. And we've got some fun things in mind for the next coming days. And I think we might do this till Halloween. We have a very special community here in our neighborhood. We have the best neighbors in the world. And I think that's what makes Winnipeg special too, is the sense of community. And we can do something silly and fun like this, and people will walk by or drive by or ride their bikes by, and it puts a smile on their face for 3 seconds, and we feel, oh, okay, our job is done.
You want Winnipeggers to just kind of organically discover this, eh?
Oh, yeah. For sure, this is for our neighborhood, our neighbors, our community. Whoever rolls by, I think it's great if it's a surprise. Like that is actually maybe one of my thrills from this month. Is you peek out and you watch a car go by and you see some kid in the passenger seat like, oh, what was that? Like it's the best moment.
And quite often we'll see people zoom by and then the car will stop and then slowly back.
Like what did I just see?
And then the car window beep, and then a phone comes out, click. So that brings us a lot of happiness.
What's the biggest clue to know kind of where this might be? Is that possible?
We're 7 minutes from downtown.
Okay. You can smell Red Top Burgers on the when the breeze is right.
That's a big clue. That's a big clue. Yeah, yeah.
It was just so good, we had to show it to you.
I know, I love it.
And they live a better life than I do.
I know, we gotta go find it though. I like that it's a secret location.
Secret. Just drive through Norwood.
Yeah, take a little drive.
Yeah.
It's a good night for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, still ahead, Riley. Our Riley is going to be back with our very last check on your forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Manitobans are getting another chance to view an art installation made of more than 1,000 bicycles by a world-renowned Chinese artist. The installation, Forever Bicycles, features more than 1,200 bikes. It will be on loan to the Forks for the next 10 years. It was created in 2013 and has been loaned to countries around the world, even spending 3 years in Winnipeg back in 2019. Forever Bicycles is a tribute to the role bikes play in China, where they're a common mode of transportation but remained financially out of reach for many.
Here's another look at your 7-day forecast as we head into Halloween on Thursday. 6 degrees, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We keep a mix of sun and clouds, dry conditions as we head to the next few days. Bit breezy, southeast winds 20 gusting to 40 on Friday. And then we hit the time change on the weekend and a little bit of a bump in temperatures. 8s and 9s through Sunday into Monday. Good chance of showers. That's our next best chance for some precipitation across southern Manitoba. And then 7 degrees on Tuesday with a mix of sun and clouds. Okay, a couple weather photos for you tonight. This one's from Ralph, northeast of Winnipeg. A picture of the sunrise, and then we've got the sunset here, taken from looking into Osborne Village. You can keep sending your pics to talkback@cbc.ca. Well, Halloween is still a couple of days away, but one Leafs fan has already won over the team and superstar Austin Matthews with his costume.
Now, the Leafs may have ended the Jets' winning streak last night, but this breakaway costume was too cute to not be our daily lift.
What's up, Poppy?
Let's go!
Okay, spin around so we can see it. Spin back.
This is 7-year-old Grayson Joseph dressed up as Leafs captain Austin Matthews, more specifically, a 3D version of his Upper Deck MVP hockey card. Grayson's dad, Grant, worked with a printing company in Ontario to create a detailed replica, and it went viral on social media.
So he's also attracted the attention of the NHL and of Matthews himself, who reposted the video that you saw there on his Instagram account. A payoff that is worthy of a spooky celly.
I get it's super cute. He's super cute.
Even if he is a
wrong
Leafs
team.
fan. Yeah.
I was gonna say,
even if he
but
is.
we got the wrong team.
Hey, we want to see your. I want to see your costumes, specifically your pet costumes, if you have. To talkback@cbc.ca. Speaking of Halloween,
send them to us because you're probably going to be all bundled up on Halloween night.
Absolutely.
Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.